If you're looking for some fun team building games, and all you've got for equipment or props is a set of index cards, this video is for you. I'm going to show you how you can build valuable team skills using these 5 team building activities, and all you need is a set of these. Index cards almost made it into my top 5 of the props and equipment that I never leave home without. Now, if you're interested to learn what those other 5 props were, check the show notes below and it'll take you to another video in this series in which I talk about the 5 most versatile, most useful props I use to build team skills and break the ice and energize the groups I work with. But these index cards, while they probably sit at number 6 in the list, are still equally versatile and very useful. And in this video, I want to share with you 5 of the very easiest team building activities you can use, but only using this particular prop. Oh, and if you can't get your hands on an actual set of index cards, don't worry. All you need is paper. Maybe shorter or smaller pieces of paper, but that's really all you need. And because these come in a really handy format, that's why they are particularly popular and always form part of my kit bag. Now, if you can watch the video all the way to the end, not only will you get the step-by-step instructions to these 5 activities in which you only need index cards, but most importantly, you will have invested in the team skills and relationships of your group. And the research is really clear in this regard. Anything you do that invites a group to engage, interact, and basically create something is about team building. And these next 5 activities all create something for your group. Okay, let's dive in. Number 1, crossword names. Each person has an index card and a pen or a texter or a marker of some form. And if, for example, that person's name has 4 letters like mine do, each of those cards will have one of the letters. So M, A, R, K, for example. So everyone's got their name listed 1 letter at a time on a particular card. So you're going to need a bunch of index cards here. And then someone, particularly if they've got a longer name, but it doesn't really matter, you ask that person to place their name almost as if they were placing the tiles on a Scrabble game. And they go M-A-R-K, one after the other, as if you're just reading it on a Scrabble board. And then much like Scrabble or a crossword, you now invite other people to look at that name and find a way that they can add their name to intersect with that first name. And of course, the second name intersects with mine. So maybe, for example, Amanda pulls off my A. So from the M-A-R-K, A, M-A-N-D-A, directly underneath it. And then Dave puts his name after the D of Amanda, and you get the idea. Eventually, everyone will have added all of their names onto the floor. Now, not only is this a bit of fun, now it is possible not everyone's going to need every one of the letters, but they will need them to start with. But importantly, it has this theme here, that it's inviting people to learn each other's names, particularly useful if your group is often new to each other. But also, notice that the names are connected. There is no amount of connection that's too much for a group that will help amplify whatever you're trying to get done. So consider how maybe the outcome of this activity, it's a great team building experience, but also can connect directly to the life of your group, or maybe even the curriculum, the theme of what you're trying to do in your lesson or your training program or your camp or your session as well. The second team building game using index cards involves just 26 cards. And that 26 cards, each card is going to represent one of the letters of the alphabet. So A, B, C, all the way through to Z or Z, depending on which side of the street you're born. And it's as simple as this. I place them on the ground, they're completely randomly distributed, and I issue this challenge. Is that for the group, without using any devices or artifacts, is to rearrange these 26 letters into the format, the configuration of a standard keyboard. A standard keyboard. Now, we use keyboards often unconsciously all the time on our smart devices or on a keyboard connected to a desktop. So you can almost see people's eyes start to roll back going, oh, okay, so when I do my name, I know, And as a group, they will need to achieve consensus that once they've re-established all of these 26 letters, it is exactly as a standard keyboard would appear. Now, it doesn't often take too long, but there's normally a couple of people in the group going, oh, I'm not sure about where the Y is, or the U is, or the Z is, or the B is. But it's really fun. It involves the group working together and as simple as using a bunch of index cards. Again, don't forget, all of the free step-by-step instructions can be found by just looking for a link in the show notes below. It'll take you directly to Playmeo and you'll be able to see all of the instructions that you can then lead this activity with confidence and ease as well. Number 3 is a wonderful icebreaker, energizer, but particularly purposeful when used in a team building context. Grab yourself a bunch of index cards and on each card, write one of a pair. Now, you're about to download this list directly from Playmeo, but each of the pairs are a match. That is, they are basically ends of a spectrum. For example, slide and swing. Now, you could see them as a spectrum, but it might also be settler and explorer, sunrise, sunset. Another set I've got is cat and dog. So maybe not so much a spectrum, but just two ends of interest or preference. So everyone gets themselves a random card, and then you invite everyone to interact and mingle with each other, find out what each other's card is, and the challenge is to find your match. So there's one person wandering around with the card that says dog. They don't know who their match is, but once they bump into someone who says swing or settler or sunrise, the connection's not quite so obvious. But then when they finally come across the person who has cat, and it seems like everyone else has found their pair, they'll be aware that they are actually a match. Now that's the first part. And clearly there's some wonderful team building going on there by respectfully working out who's my match? And it's bound to be someone that maybe you don't spend a lot of time with, which is a wonderful outcome in and of itself. And then you might just pick up on one or more of the pairs in the group. So for example, you might choose, okay, let's get a volunteer pair and we've got swing and slide. And so then you invite everyone to consider, are they more like a slide or are they more like a swing? Now, we did not say, do they like being on a slide or do they like being on a swing? I'm asking them to think of the attributes and the characteristics of each of the two objects. In this case, what is a slide? Well, it goes down really, really fast. Whereas a swing goes backwards and forwards, more in a more poetic motion. They are just a couple of the attributes of these two objects. And so each person is then invited, am I more like a slide or am I more like a swing? Or it could be, am I more like a dog, very loyal, always like to play, never seems to get upset? Or am I more like a cat, where I tend to enjoy people working for me, and I tend to spend a lot of time at rest, and so on and so on. Not good, not bad, not wrong, not right. You can't get it wrong or right. And so each person needs to consider, and you might decide that there's a line on the ground and you ask each person to stand on that line based on how are they like? Are they more like a cat, more like a dog, or more like a settler, more like an explorer? You get the idea. And they find themselves on the line. A great way to learn more about your group, and you don't even have to say anything. You are simply moving your body to that spot on the line. Having done that, you might invite each person, if you choose, to chitty chat with those around them because they're likely got some things in common. Again, wonderful in building those healthy and trusted relationships in your group. And then you can move on to another pair. So sunrise, sunset, for example, window, door. There are so many. So if you're looking for those pairs, go to playmeo.com and punch in the name of this activity, which is called Are You More Like? And you'll be able to access dozens of different pairs of this nature. Number 4, the memory card game. Now, this activity is based on an activity that all of you will be familiar with. Possibly you learned from your grandparents. It was that game that you would play often as a board game on a table. All of the different pieces were face down, and the object was to pick any two pieces and turn them over, and if they were a match, you got to keep them. And the person who got most matches wins. So think of that premise. It starts with taking a bunch of blank index cards and writing down 10 attributes or characteristics of high-performing teams. So it would be trust and leadership and items of that nature. Values, communication. So you want 10 of those, and then you want to duplicate them. So you have a total of 20. So you have 2 trusts, 2 leadership, and so on and so on and so on. Now, already at this point, you could have drawn those elements from your group if you'd asked the question, what are those 10 most essential elements of a high-performing team? Or you could just give it to them. Either way, you've got your 20 cards with 10 pairs. At one end of the room, the playing space you're working with, you've got them face down on a table or on the floor, and then there's a group at the other end. And it works like this. When you say go, it's a timed event. One person at a time comes over and turns over 2 cards. So for example, the 2 cards you might turn over are trust and leadership. Now they're clearly not a match, in which case they get put back down where they came. And then that person goes back, the next person comes out and picks up another 2. Now at some point when they realize that, we've now uncovered both of the trusts, then that person, and as a group, they can remember where they are, they can bring them both up, they stay faced up. So if this is their first pair, they've got 9 other pairs to now match. And the process continues until all 10 pairs have been found. Now that in and of itself is a really fun activity. It's high-paced, it's interactive, and then if you want to, and if you go to the notes, particularly on playmeo.com for this activity, which is called the memory card game, you'll be able to then learn some other variations that will extract some further value that will really enhance the team building skills of your group. And it relates mostly to values. So for example, just as a bit of a teaser, the next question I ask them is, now that we've identified all of the 10 pairs, we say to them, okay, these represent the 10 elements of a high-performing team. Which 5 are the most important? Now, there is no right answer, but where the fun is found is when the group actually leans into the activity in that question and identifies, of these 10, these 5 for our team are the most important. Now, there's more to come, but check that out when you go online. So it's called the memory card game. Again, all the step-by-step instructions are online, ready for you to take. This 5th team building game that you can use index cards for can also be used as a follow-on from the last one, the memory card game. You want to start with a whole bunch of blank cards, and for every one of, let's say, the 10 people in your group, you want to think of 10 different elements of a high-performance team. It doesn't have to be that, it could be anything, to be honest, but 10 different elements. So if we identified that trust was one of them, and leadership and communication and values, whatever those 10 are, you want to have 5 or 4, let's say, a minimum, 4 or 5 of each of those. So you're going to have 4 trusts, for example, or 5 trusts, and then there'll be 5 leaderships, and there'll be 5 cooperations, and so on and so on. So remember that if you've got 10 people in your group, then you've got 10 sets of those words. If there's 20 of you, then you might want to consider 20 different elements. But let's say this is ideally suited for anything between 10 and 15 people in your team. Once you've got all of those marked up, and you could do that in advance or get your group to help you create them, shuffle them, get them all mixed up, and then randomly distribute them to the rest of the group. Don't show them to anybody else. The person who's collecting them cannot see them yet either. So everyone has 4 or 5 cards, depending on how many of each that you've distributed. And then with those 5 cards, they're going to have a mix, more than likely, of the 10 or 12 or 15 different attributes. And this is their objective. At the end of the game, everyone, but hopefully being the first one, to actually collect all 5, in this case, of the trusts. So maybe I start with my first 5 cards, and trust is only one of them. But from here, there is now a trading marketplace that is opened. I go up to any one other person, and I can do a 1-for-1 swap. So I might give up, I don't know, leadership, because they're going to give me trust. Okay? And you keep swapping, but you can never get to see the other person's cards. It's always a 1-for-1 swap. You can't see their cards. So you might say, I want to swap 2 cards. Then someone else who wants to swap 2 cards will come and greet you, and you end up swapping those 2 cards. The trading continues until some one person gets all 5 of the one card. Now, sometimes it works out that a couple of people get very close to 5, but there's always one that gets it first. And then the game can continue if you want to go for second or third places. So there's a bit of a competitive element here, but then it also boils down to a conversation that you can draw more value from this team building activity, where you might discuss, okay, in this case, trust was the first thing to be found, but is it the most important thing for this group? Maybe it's one of the other 10 or 12 or 15 attributes. So it provides an energetic, stimulating, motivating activity to then move into a conversation about elements that are important for a team. Okay? Value stock market. There's actually another icebreaker game called the name stock market, which is very, very similar. Again, both of those, and indeed over 530 activities of this nature, can be found at playmeo.com. But stick around, because I've got a couple of bonuses for you if you're looking for more team building activities that you can use in your program. First one is, if you go to playmeo.com, you'll unlock 530 or more icebreakers, energizers, trust building activities and team building games, and the step-by-step instructions so that you could lead them with confidence and ease. And so knock yourself out. There's so many activities that you could learn to add to the 5 that I've shared in this video. And then, of course, the second bonus is a free ebook. If you'd like to learn some more really fun icebreakers and group games that you can use with your group, head along to playmeo.com/free-ebook, and you'll be able to download this 30-page ebook. It'll have all the step-by-step instructions. There'll be videos, there'll be photographs and so forth that you can learn from. So again, you can integrate them into your program as well. So if you liked any of the activities I've shared with you, or any one or more of them resonated with you in terms of your program, would you do me a favor and hit the like button below? It would really make a big difference, because the more likes we get, the more encouraged I am to share this content for free throughout our YouTube channel. And of course, if you really like it, I invite you to subscribe and hit that notification bell, so every time we drop some new content, which is roughly every week, you'll be immediately alerted. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And of course, as I always do, I wish you all the fun out there.